Good morning. You've heard it before, but it's worth repeating. The Gandhi King Chavez Season for Peace and Nonviolence is a global, 64-day educational, media, grassroots campaign dedicated to demonstrating that nonviolence is a powerful way to heal. Nonviolence is a powerful way to transform and to empower our lives and our communities. As in previous years, this, the 15th year of the Season for Nonviolence, kicked off and will culminate with observance at the United Nations, and will include projects and programs to create greater awareness and consciousness of the principles and practices of nonviolence in hundreds of cities around the globe. As you know, here at Unity, we're observing the season in many ways. As in past years, we obtained an official proclamation, which is on the table there, for the season from the Eureka City Council. Several of our Sunday talks are focused on peace, and during each Sunday service, there's a candlelighting ceremony and reading of a special prayer for peace. Thank you, Mother. This year, in keeping with our Unity theme of interspirituality, each of the prayers has come from a different religious tradition. You notice the one that Adrew read this morning was from the United Nations. Our book discussion group is reading Thoreau's On Civil Disobedience. This is his famous essay from which both Gandhi and King took their guidelines for nonviolent social activism. And on March 31st, there will be a Peace Day celebration with many activities for the general public. Thank you, Linda. Including the planting of a peace pole out in the community garden. In preparing for this year's season, I started to think about the many ways that peace initiatives all over the planet were born and are currently flourishing. Since the theme of this year's season is global peace through social media, my thoughts turn to many of the social movements that are currently spreading around the globe, due in large part to the increase in social media. The most dramatic of these, of course, has been the Arab Spring and its aftermath, particularly all of the Occupy movements. I want today to talk about a few of these. But first, back a little bit. 2 years ago, as Unity marked the season for nonviolence, our book discussion focused on Deepak Chopra's Peace is the Way. The book's main point is based on a quote by Mahatma Gandhi: "There is no peace. Peace is the way." And Chopra dedicated his book to all the peacemakers in the world who, by becoming firmly established in nonviolence, will cause all beings around them to cease to feel hostility of all kinds. This started me thinking about the paths of all the peacemakers in the world, and that's the title of today's talk, The Paths of Peacemakers. One of the quotes that Chopra uses in the book is from Black Elk, who said, "The first peace, which is the most important, is that which comes within the souls of people when they realize their relationship, their oneness, the universe and all its powers, and when they realize that at the center of the universe dwells the Great Spirit, and that this center is really everywhere and is within us." That quote, Black Elk's first peace, reminded me of one of the first paths of peace that is part of the history of this country. It's the legend and the reality of Daganawida, the peacemaker. The story of Daganawida and his companion and spokesman, Hiawatha, is one of the most inspiring stories in all religious and political history. Together, Daganawida and Hiawatha created a peaceful democracy among 5 tribes of native peoples in the northeastern woodlands of this continent. A peaceful democracy where previously there had been only long years of violence and intertribal warfare. This democracy lasted hundreds of years, and still is to a remarkable extent in force today. The legend is not just myth, it's history, based on real-life happenings occurring before the white man discovered the Western Hemisphere. The historical story of the founding of the Iroquois Confederacy took place sometime between 1000 and 1500. Over the years, it's been embroidered and elaborated on in many, many versions. But the bottom line is that a complex and comprehensive democracy was established in America long before the colonists arrived. Proofs of this achievement and stories about Daganoweda were carried back to Europe by the earliest settlers, and these stories influenced many of the seminal thinkers of England and France who promoted the idea of a democratic society, both in Europe and in the West. Benjamin Franklin was one of the first founding fathers in this country who was inspired by the Iroquois Confederacy. And it was he who proposed a plan to unite the American colonies that followed closely upon the ideals and organization of the Iroquois League. Although not accepted when it was first proposed, and that's not a surprise, Franklin's plan became a key and major influence 20 years later in the Articles of Confederation, and it was also an important creation of the Constitution and formation of this young republic. It's a wonderful story, but I'm not going to say anything more about it today because I think Shay is going to do that for you in a couple of weeks. Daganoweda was just one of the paths of peacemakers that we benefit from today, and which we celebrate during the season for nonviolence. His is a legacy that moved in this country through its founding, through Thoreau's essay on civil disobedience, through Gandhi's Satyagraha, through Martin Luther King's civil rights movement, to Occupy the World, and now to Challenge Day. Challenge Day. A few weeks ago, after hearing about the season during Unity's service, a young man came up to me after service and said that he was involved in a very special program in his school, one that focused on peace and nonviolence, and that he wanted to talk about it. It was called Challenge Day. And needless to say, I was thrilled at the offer. And now I am absolutely delighted to welcome Adrew Trosin to our podium, not only to help us celebrate the season for nonviolence, but also to celebrate Andrew's Unity debut as a spokesman for Challenge Day. I'm sure you'll agree with me that what Andrew shares with us today is another of the important paths of peacemakers.
Good morning. I'm a student here at Koutouzos High School, currently enrolled as a class of 2012. It is unfortunate that this year we do not have Challenge Day, but I'm going to give you a little overview of what exactly it is. The whole point of it, throughout this entire 8-hour-long day that we have, that contributes to various things about violence and ways to rethink it. The whole point of it is to get our students learning, well, okay, maybe saying this or doing this was just way too much. So to put forth a proposition for you. In my right hand, I stand between the freshman class and Koutouzos High. In my left hand, I stand before the senior class. Our senior class of Koutouzos High can look at each other, joke around, but yet know that no feelings are meant to be hurt. I had a young lady the other day come up to me and ask me, why isn't Challenge Day being offered this year? It's unfortunate that the school's funding for that will need this year. The day consists of a bunch of games, as I like to call it, and long speeches about how life in general is taken. How many people like to decide that life itself can go on with peace, not violence. Yes, wars must be fought, but in my opinion, no wars were being first game that they play is called the back-to-back game. Consists of a bunch of people coordinating with and organizing around in this small space, is what they like to call it. They will link back to back, and on the count of 3, they will turn around and they will shake hands and beat one another. Of course, all the friends and everybody who knows each other will hook up first. That's when the interesting part kicks in. We get students from all over the globe. It is interesting to find that the students who hate each other are now linked back to back, like, what am I going to do? How am I going to say this without trying to be mean? It really turns that entire tide. That tension is now brought forward to the second thing, which is called our families. They consist of little groups of kids that were picked out from various teachers that are just in tiny groups of 6 or 7 or 8 kids. The first question they are asked to answer is the question of, if you really knew me, you would know this. And their answer might be that their mother died, or that somebody's bullied me in this particular way. Who knows? They have about a 30-second spiel about that. Then they go back to the speeches that the Challenge Day coordinators give. And I will not lie, some of them are heartbreaking. Some of them are very sad. It's not intentional, but tears do shed. Then we go to what is called the crossing the line game. That's towards the end of the day. That is, for the foremost and for the most part, the hardest part of that day. They draw a line at the center of the room. They have kids stand on each side. Their questions that are asked are ranged from, the easiest question there, I believe, is, if you eat pizza, will you please cross the line? Students typically will cross that line. The next question they might ask would be, have you lost a loved one due to violence or due to a substance abuse? And they would cross the line. And it ranges from a lot of different questions. It really breaks students down to learn what exactly they've all been through. Learn that they're not the only ones that go through it. By breaking down all these emotions throughout the entire day, they learn that maybe that thing I said wasn't such a wise thing. The last part of that day, which I unfortunately did not get to bring up, is the apology time. That's where students get to wander the room and sincerely apologize to people for doing stuff in the past. I typically will see students who will go up and apologize, and they will actually mean it. They'll go back to school and everything will be fine. And there's the types of students who just don't care and want to get the day over with. We know how that goes. Needless to say, there's a grave difference in the way that schools are teaching it. With the start of Challenge Day, it's became a very big thing in McGinnville. We do what is called Challenge Day Wednesdays also to promote that. It's a day where you will either wear white or you will wear all black, showing that you are not going to bully someone. It's a very mindset, emotional day, in my opinion. But so long as we have that in our schools, it should promote at least some of the ways that nonviolence should not be, should be taught in a class, in my opinion. I liked that when I first met Chris Evans, the way he greeted me was just outstanding. Chris Evans is our 2006 peacemaker. He had that work. He works at McGinnville High. He's a peer mediation counselor. First met him with, hey, how you doing? And I'm just like a little freshman, so of course I'm like, what did I do? It wasn't like, hey, how are you? It was, so then he got me on the mindset of thinking, well, okay, maybe I should start, being nice, and sort of changed everything around. So I'd like to give him a round of applause, even though he could not be here. He's one of the most dedicated people at McGinnville High to this cause.